Hey guys, welcome to the week 7 reading lesson. I have an exciting presentation for you today because we have a special guest reading our second book. Our first book we will listen to on YouTube, and our second book we have a special guest who's going to read. We'll compare and contrast those stories. So without further ado, let's go ahead and listen to our first story, which is called The Emperor's New Clothes.
The Emperor's New Clothes. Many years ago, there was an emperor who loved fine clothes. He did not care for hunting. He did not care for plays or opera. He was no lover of gourmet food or wine. His only ambition was always to be well dressed. He had a different coat for every hour of the day. He loved to walk about and show off his fancy outfits. One day, two strangers arrived in town. They were swindlers, but they said they were master weavers from a faraway land. They told the emperor that they could weave the most beautiful cloth in the world. They said that not only was their cloth beautiful, but it was also magical. It was specially woven so that only the most intelligent people could see it. Those who were ignorant could stare at the cloth all day and not see a thing. Astonishing, thought the emperor. I will have these men make a suit for me. When it is done, I will figure out who can see it. That way, I will be able to tell which of the men who serve me are intelligent and which are fools. The emperor gave the swindlers a purse filled with gold coins and told them to begin weaving the magic cloth right away. The swindlers set up 2 weaving looms and pretended to be weaving their wonderful cloth, but they had nothing at all on their looms. After a few days, the emperor grew curious to see the cloth. At first, he thought he might check up on the weavers himself, but then he remembered what they had said. Only intelligent people could see the cloth. He was confident that he was smart. There could be little doubt of that. But what if he was not? What if he could not see the cloth? Just to be on the safe side, he decided to send his prime minister to have a look. He is very intelligent, said the king. If he can't see the cloth, I dare say nobody can. The emperor called for the prime minister and sent him to check up on the weavers. The prime minister went to the room and peeked in. The 2 swindlers were working away at their looms. Prime Minister, one of the swindlers called out, you are welcome here. Come in, come in. Come and see the cloth we have produced. The man waved his hand at the empty loom and said, isn't it beautiful? The prime minister squinted and rubbed his head. He did not see any cloth at all, but he did not dare to admit it. That would mean he was a fool. So he pretended to see the cloth. Yes, said the prime minister. It is most beautiful indeed. I like it very much. Keep up the good work. The prime minister turned to leave, but the second swindler called out to him, wait, don't go. You must not leave without touching the cloth. I think you will be impressed. We were just saying that it is the softest cloth we have ever created. The prime minister hesitated for a moment. Then he said, of course, and he walked up to one of the looms. He reached out his hand and rubbed his fingers together in the area where he thought the cloth must be. He could not feel anything, but he said, it is very soft indeed. Why, it's lighter than air. Thank you, said the first swindler. We are pleased with what we have done, and we are making very good progress too. But we need a little more money for thread and other materials, of course, you understand. Of course, said the prime minister. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a bag of coins, and then he handed the coins to the swindlers. Prime Minister went back to the emperor and told him that the cloth was quite lovely and as soft as could be. He said he was confident that the emperor would like it. That was what the emperor had hoped to hear. The next day, he went to have a look for himself. After all, if his prime minister had seen the cloth, surely he could see it too. But when he stepped into the room where the two men had set up their looms, the emperor saw nothing on the looms. "This is terrible," he thought. "I don't see anything at all. What can this mean? If the prime minister saw the cloth, it must be there. Then why can't I see it? Am I stupid? Am I unfit to be emperor? That would be the most dreadful thing that could happen to me." But out loud, he said, "It is magnificent, truly magnificent. Why, I have never seen cloth so lovely. Shall we go ahead and make you a suit then, your majesty?" "Yes, yes, by all means," said the emperor. "You can get my measurements from the royal tailor." The two swindlers sat up late into the night, pretending to work on the suit. They wove more invisible cloth. They cut the air with scissors and stitched the wind with threadless needles. Other noblemen came to inspect the cloth, and all of them pretended to be able to see it, for they did not wish to appear stupid. Soon, the whole town was talking about the wonderful cloth and the emperor's new suit. At last, the day came when the emperor was to wear his new clothes in public. The two swindlers presented themselves in the emperor's dressing room at daybreak. "Here is the jacket," said the first swindler, holding up an empty hanger. "And here are the pants," said the other, holding one hand in the air. "What do you think of them?" All of the emperor's men agreed that the new clothes were splendid. The emperor took off his clothes, and the two swindlers pretended to help him put on the make-believe garments. "Slip your right leg in here, your majesty. That's it. Now your left leg. Good. Now, I must tell you, these pants are not like regular pants. The fabric is so light and airy that it feels like you are wearing nothing at all. But that is the beauty of them." The men helped the emperor put on the imaginary clothes. Then they led him to his looking glass. "How handsome you look, your majesty," said one of the swindlers. All of the courtiers nodded their heads in agreement. The emperor marched out of the dressing room and made his way out of the palace. Followed by many advisors and servants, he marched down the main street of town with soldiers and bodyguards surrounding him on all sides. The streets were lined with great crowds. Everyone had heard about the emperor's new clothes made of magic fabric that only the wise could see. "How lovely the emperor's new clothes are," one man said. "And how well they fit him," added a woman. None of them would admit that they could not see a thing. The emperor marched through the street, bursting with pride, showing off his brilliant new suit to everyone in the land. Much to his surprise, they all seemed to see what he could not, and so he was not going to be the one to tell them. Just then, a young child stepped out of the crowd and cried out, "He hasn't got anything on!" A hush fell over the crowd. For a few seconds, nobody said anything. Then everyone began to whisper, "The child is right. The emperor isn't wearing a thing." Then people began to giggle and laugh as they cried out, "He hasn't got anything on!" At last, the emperor knew he had been tricked. He tried to march back to the palace as proudly as ever, but he was blushing from head to toe, as everyone could plainly see. So the moral of the story is, do not pretend to know something you do not know.
Definitely. What a silly folk tale. I hope you guys like that one. Well, what I'm going to have you do, like I said, was to fill out a Venn diagram to compare and contrast the two stories we're going to listen to today. We just listened to The Emperor's New Clothes. Okay. Remember, things to think about comparing and contrasting are characters, plot, setting, problems, solutions, morals. Those are great things to compare and contrast, find similarities and differences. The next story we're going to read is The Principal's New Clothes. And like I told you, we have a special guest who's going to read this to you. Are you ready? See if I can get it in full screen. Fantastic. Here we go.
Second graders, hello, it's your principal, Mr. Hustle. An annual tradition is for me to come into all second grade classrooms and read one of my favorite stories to second graders. The name of the story is The Principal's New Clothes, so I'm going to read that to you. Mr. Bundy is the principal of PS 88. He's also the sharpest dresser in town. His students never miss a day of school. They like to see what he's wearing. Looking good, Mr. B.
It's telling me that my share is stopping. So let's see here if I can get this fixed. I want you to be able to see him. There we go.
They always say, Mr. Bundy has so many clothes he can go a whole month and not wear the same suit twice. Sometimes he changes at lunchtime just to show off. One day a man and a woman who said they were tailors called on Mr. Bundy. Their card said, we make a suit that suits you fine. But they were not really tailors, they were tricksters. Greetings, Mr. B, said Ivy. How would you like to buy an amazing one-of-a-kind suit? I have so many suits already, said Mr. Bundy. Ah, but this is no ordinary suit. It has special powers, said Mo. What do you mean, asked Mr. Bundy. Mo looked to his left, he looked to his right, then he whispered in Mr. Bundy's ear. We make our clothes from special cloth. It's invisible to anyone who's no good at his job or just plain stupid. Really? Said Mr. Bundy. Yes, not only will you look great, but you can find out if anyone in your school is no good at his job or stupid. Said Ivy. That is amazing, cried Mr. Bundy. Now, if you'll take off your jacket and lift up your arm, sir, we'll take your measurements, said Ivy, grinning. We'll also take your money, mumbled Mo. The next day, Mo and Ivy set up a workshop in the gym. It was not long before the whole school heard about the amazing cloth and wanted to see it. Students asked to be excused to get a drink of water. Then they ran to the gym to peek. Teachers said they were going next door to borrow chalk. Then they ran to the gym too, but no one could see a thing. By the end of the week, Mr. Bundy began to wonder what his new clothes looked like. But he was also a little worried. What if he could not see the cloth? So he sent his vice principal, Miss Moore, to have a look. Miss Moore was smart and good at her job. She would have no trouble seeing the special cloth. Miss Moore hurried to the gym. She knocked on the door. Mr. Bundy sent me to see his new clothes, she called over the noise of the whirring machines. A moment later, the door opened a crack and Miss Moore slipped inside. What do you think? Have you ever seen anything like it? Asked Mo. Poor Miss Moore. She could not see a thing. Can it be that I'm stupid or unfit for my job? She wondered. I've tried so hard to be a good vice principal. She took off her glasses, wiped them, and looked again. But it was no use. Miss Moore had to think fast. If she told the truth, she might get fired. It's beautiful. I'm going to tell Mr. Bundy right now how much I like his new clothes, said Miss Moore. Your suit is great, Miss Moore told Mr. Bundy. I've never seen anything like it. But now I've got to run and make a phone call. Bye. She hurried off before Mr. Bundy could ask any questions. Now Mr. Bundy was more curious than ever. He stopped Roger in the hall. Roger was one of the smartest students in the school. If he couldn't see the suit, nobody could. Say, Roger, do me a favor and find out how my new suit's coming along, said Mr. Bundy. Roger couldn't believe his ears. Wow, I'll be the first one to see the principal's new clothes. Wait till the class hears about this, said Roger as he raced off to the gym. The door was still open, so Roger peeked inside. He could see Mo and Ivy at their sewing machines, hard at work, but he could not see the cloth. Oh no, if Mr. Feeney finds out that I can't see this cloth, she'll say I'm stupid. She'll fail me for sure. On the way back to class, Roger poked his head in Mr. Bundy's office. Super suit, he said. What does it look like? Asked Mr. Bundy. I can't stop now, Mr. B. Mrs. Feeney is giving a test, and I wouldn't want to miss it. Mr. Bundy couldn't stand it any longer. I'll have to go see for myself. He marched down the hall and walked into the gym. Mr. Bunny looked at the empty machines. He blinked once. He blinked twice. He began to tremble. How can this be? Am I really no good at my job? He wondered, is there anything wrong? Asked Ivy. Oh no, the suit, it's fantastic. I can hardly wait to try it on, said Mr. Bundy. Mr. Bundy handed Mo and Ivy 2 gold stars to show how much he liked his new suit. I'd like to wear the new suit to the assembly tomorrow, but I guess it won't be ready, he said. He turned to go. Yes, it will. We will work on it all night and bring it to your house in the morning, said Mo. That night, Mr. Bunny dreamed cold and drafty dreams. Early the next morning, Mo and Ivy appeared, holding their empty hangers in the air. Ivy waited in the other room while Mo helped Mr. Bundy put on his new clothes. You must be careful stepping into the pants. This cloth is very delicate, said Mo. Ivy tried not to look at Mr. Bundy. She asked, aren't your new clothes light? It's almost like having nothing on at all, isn't it? Mr. Bundy stared at himself in the mirror. He prayed that the rest of the world was smarter and fitter than he. Are you coming to the assembly? Asked Mr. Bundy. Thanks, but no thanks. We have a bus to catch. And now if you could pass, we'll just run along, said Ivy. Mo handed Mr. Bundy the bill. Mr. Bundy had handed Mo a great deal of money. On the way to school, Mr. Bundy's neighbors all raved about the clothes they did not see. After all, they did not want their friends to find out that they were stupid or not good at their jobs. Mr. Bundy walked into the auditorium. As he walked down the aisle, he could hear whispers all around him. Mr. Bundy thought he must be the only stupid person in town. Suddenly, a kindergarten child called out, "The principal's in his underwear!" That did it. Everyone burst out laughing. The truth had been told. Mr. Bundy and the teachers and students knew they had been tricked. No one had been willing to tell the truth because they were worried about others would think of them. Mr. Bundy stood on stage, red in the face, knees shaking from the chill. But not for long. The kids and teachers wanted to help Mr. Bundy. They began passing up shirts and sweatpants, jackets, ties, and caps. Soon, Mr. Bundy had a new suit. Looking good, Mr. B, called Roger from the back row. Mr. Bundy called the kindergarten child up on the stage. He shook her hand and gave her a gold star. Thank you for telling the truth, Alice, he said. Everyone cheered. They knew Mr. Bundy was smart and good at his job, and they all agreed Mr. Bundy was still the sharpest dresser in town. One of my favorite stories, just make sure that I'm never caught in my underwear at Fairfield South. You guys, don't forget to always tell the truth. Have a great day. I hope you enjoyed the story.
All right, we appreciate Mr. Hustle doing that for us. Pretty special. So again, lots of similarities, a couple of differences. I'm not going to go through this with you today. I know it's technically a lesson day, but we've been comparing and contrasting all year. Think about some things that were different. Okay, in Emperor's New Clothes, the main character was an emperor. In the Principal's New Clothes, the character was a principal. The Emperor's New Clothes, just by guessing, by looking at the setting and everything, happened in the past. The Principal's New Clothes could happen in the present day. What happened in both? Both of the main characters went in public in their underwear. Everyone was scared to tell the truth. They didn't want to seem stupid. Those are just some examples. Come up with some more ideas from both of these stories that you can say are different and that are the same. I hope you really enjoyed reading lesson Wednesday this week, and I hope you enjoyed the story by Principal Hustle. If you think about it, maybe send him a short little email thanking him for doing that for us. Very special. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you at 5 o'clock for our read aloud. Bye, friends.